Today was the day when Donald Trump imposed 100% secondary tariff against Russia was meant to have kicked in. Instead, the motor-mouthed US president appears to have capitulated to his Russian counterpart once again. And no one is surprised. Anyone who has followed this paper tiger knows that Trump only bullies the weak and not someone who has the potential to humiliate him publicly. Trump just finished speaking with the members of the media, where he was all praise for Putin. Not only is he excited to meet Putin at an undisclosed location, but he has also given indication to accept Putin's demands on making Russia's territorial gain, particularly in the eastern part of Ukraine, a permanent feature as part of any ceasefire deal.
And I think we're getting very close, and we're going to be announcing later on, we're going to have a meeting with Russia. We'll start off with Russia, and we'll announce a location. I think the location will be a very popular one for a lot of reasons, but we'll be announcing that a little bit later. I just don't want to do it now because of the importance of what we just did. Yes, please, go ahead.
Follow-up. Are you surprised that Zelensky hasn't figured out by now, in years of war, how to deal with you and to deal with Putin without needing permission to make concessions from his parliament or from a national referendum?
Well, he's going out and getting what he needs. You know, he's not authorized to do certain things. I said, well, you're going to have to get it fast because, you know, we're getting very close to a deal.
This was after Trump sent his special envoy on everything, Steve Witkoff, to Moscow to meet Putin this week. That was the clearest signal yet of Trump's surrender to Putin. Why would you send your billionaire property tycoon friend to meet someone who you had given a deadline to agree for a ceasefire or face 100% secondary tariff? This is being viewed as a massive win for Putin.
In the Kremlin, pomp and ceremony, and a guest, the President of the United Arab Emirates. But the meeting everyone was talking about was Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump. Moscow had announced there'd be a US-Russia summit within days. We have many friends, Vladimir Putin said, ready to help organize such an event. The President of the United Arab Emirates is one of them, but he didn't confirm a venue. The two men haven't met in years, not since Donald Trump's first term. Russia's announcement of a new summit came just a day before the end of President Trump's deadline for the Kremlin to end its war in Ukraine. Vladimir Putin hasn't, not yet.
He certainly almost manages out of very weak position to get an upper hand. And the upper hand is that 5 minutes ago he was supposed to be sanctioned, and suddenly he's getting a meeting with Donald Trump, which he always wanted.
When Trump announced the deployment of 2 nuclear submarines, even he knew that this wouldn't scare Putin. According to experts in the US, this action was to keep rabid anti-Russian fascist elements within the Republican Party, such as Lindsey Graham, happy. Because in reality, the US would disappear from the world map in the event that is engaged in a nuclear war with Russia. Watch this American professor on the Judging Freedom podcast.
And so to keep Graham happy and quiet, he pretends to do things which are, shall we say, bizarre, shall we say, chest thumping, like these two that I mentioned. Right. From the standpoint of the Russians, the idea of the dispatch of these nuclear submarines was meaningless. As they said in this program, panelists who know military affairs, the range of the missiles on board those American submarines is 15,000 kilometers. In other words, even if they stayed at their home ports in the west coast and the east coast of the United States, they could hit any target they would want in Russia anyway. So the idea of moving them so-called closer to Russia doesn't change the threat of these weapons from what they were before they were moved 1 inch. The other point, it's something like Donahue. It's well known what the Russian response will be to any attempt to capture Kaliningrad, however many kilometers wide it is and how many assets the United States and NATO have all around Kaliningrad. So they take it. Let's say they take it. And the next day, the United States will cease to exist.
There is another factor favoring Vladimir Putin, and Trump is aware of this reality. This became public knowledge last week when a Ukrainian lawmaker, mind you, Ukrainian lawmaker, revealed how as many as 400,000 Ukrainian soldiers had deserted the army. Now, this is a massive number. Just imagine 400,000 frontline soldiers quitting the army right in the middle of a full blown war. Some believe that such is the Russian superiority in the war that it can occupy the whole of the land east of Dnieper River within a couple of months.
У нас почему-то политика не убрать проблему, не устранить проблему, не решить проблему, а уничтожить жалобщика. Но люди имеют свойство заканчиваться, поэтому мы видим и провалы на фронте, мы видим и проблемы с мобилизацией, мы видим и проблемы с СЗЧ. Мы должны также осознавать, что цифры по СЗЧ, да, вот, например, на сегодняшний день они подобрались к 400 тысячам. Это цифры общие, очень многие возвращаются, вот, но очень многие никогда не вернутся, потому что это принципиально. Они сказали, нельзя людям, понимаете, которые пошли добровольно, которые 3 года отвоевали, отпахали, не видели ни родных, ни близких, нельзя с ними относиться как с животными, поймите. Они должны тоже иметь право на то, чтобы вернуться домой к своим детям, женам и вообще вернуться в обычное русло жизни. А отношение к ним вы вернетесь только после победы, оно же только усугубляет ситуацию. Поэтому это тоже одна из основных причин СЗЧ.
Another development that shows Putin is dictating terms in the ongoing US efforts to achieve a ceasefire is the Russian president's refusal to meet Trump in the presence of Volodymyr Zelensky, something that Trump desperately wanted. Trump's capitulation to Putin also shows that he can only bully weaker countries. A reporter asked him if his planned meeting with Putin means that India wouldn't face the 50% tariff for purchasing Russian oil. His answer was that that tariff stands at the moment. Mark my words. He's playing with fire. The moment he realizes that his action has brought India and China together, he would be forced to eat humble pie once again. Why am I saying that? Because as I speak, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is all set to visit China for the first time in 7 years. Mind you, these were the two countries which have been on the verge of a war for last several years. I mean, India has imposed a ban on Chinese products, and that ban was imposed many, many years ago. That's the kind of hostility that exists under the current government against China. But this man called Donald Trump has brought these two warring countries together with just one action. Many experts believe that this would mark a spectacular failure of the US foreign policy, since it had taken huge efforts and a number of years for Washington to get India out of the Russian fold. Now Trump has single-handedly pushed India away from the US and towards Russia and China. Just imagine the power dynamics globally at the world level of these countries when they unite against the US. That's it from me. Thank you very much for your support of this platform and our journalism on buymeacoffee.com and Patreon. If you do think that our journalism is worth supporting, then you too should consider becoming part of it. Details are there in the description of this video. In the meantime, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.